No wonder that in 2021, San Francisco issued only 2,000 permits for new homes. Sure, there are people living in the streets, but that's because we want to make sure the apartments they don't live in are perfect. I don't fear AI anymore because it couldn't possibly be any more robotic than the humans who run things now.
Bill Maher has reached his breaking point with what he sees as excessive wokeness on the left, and frankly, I feel the same way. In a recent episode of Real Time with Bill Maher, the sharp-witted host took aim at the progressive fixation on bureaucracy, arguing that it's stifling America's environmental progress. True to form, Maher didn't hold back. He skewered the inefficiency, pointing out how massive amounts of money are being spent with little to show for it. The result was a bold and unflinching critique that left few excuses standing. There's a lot to unpack here, so let's dive in.
Not that America isn't able to get anything done. It's that we're not allowed to. Of course there should be consideration of the environment on everything we build, but as so often happens on the left, they seem to have no ability to recognize when they've taken a concept way too far and are in fact hurting their own cause. America's become Gulliver, the giant that got tied down with 1,000 tiny ropes by Lilliputians, the horde of little people who do big damage. Build back better? Sounds good. So does shovel-ready jobs. Yeah, exactly.
Maher started by calling out what he sees as the woke left's tendency to choke America's progress with layers of red tape and endless bureaucracy. He argued that the Biden administration's Build Back Better plan wasn't really about building or improving anything. It was, instead, a tangled system of procedures, committees, and paperwork. In Maher's view, it wasn't a blueprint for progress, but a case study in government inefficiency. Every step forward required mountains of forms and a long chain of approvals. Ultimately, he claimed that the plan would have done little to help everyday Americans and far more to benefit bureaucrats and contractors who stood to profit from the process.
As Barack Obama once said, one of the biggest lessons he learned as president was there is no such thing as shovel-ready projects. Environmental impact statements used to be a few pages long. Now they're thousands of pages of legalistic nonsense and take an average of 4.5 years to complete, with thousands of bureaucrats filling out millions of paper forms that kill hundreds of forests to answer the question, is this good for the environment? In San Francisco, the city's so nice you'll step in poop twice.
Obama campaigned hard on the idea of shovel-ready projects, promising that progress would begin the moment he took office. But that promise quickly unraveled. He eventually admitted, somewhat sheepishly, that there were, in fact, no shovel-ready projects at all. The reality was buried beneath layers of regulations and endless environmental reviews. Even today, the left's continued emphasis on environmental impact statements (EIS) has stalled major initiatives like the Keystone XL pipeline extension under the Biden administration, projects that, some argue, could have balanced development with environmental protection. The irony is striking. The government's effort to save the planet results in massive amounts of paper waste just to produce these lengthy EIS reports. It's a textbook example of bureaucracy undermining the very purpose it claims to serve.
There's an area where homeless people were urinating and defecating, and it was starting to annoy the people breaking into cars. So the city tried to build a public toilet last year, but then gave up when the cost hit $1.7 million. Not $1.7 million for a public toilet system, $1.7 million for one toilet. And this wasn't some magic toilet that catches your phone when you drop it. So then a private company took pity on San Francisco and offered to build them their toilet for free. But after, quote, project management, construction, management, architecture, and engineering fees, permits, civic design review, surveys, contract preparation, and cost estimation, the free toilet was still going to cost almost $1 million.
And that's where the public's frustration truly began to boil over. Under the Biden administration, bureaucracy became so overwhelming that even the simplest projects turned into paperwork-filled nightmares. It's part of why many voters eventually turned away from the DNC. People were tired of watching their tax dollars disappear into administrative black holes. Something as basic as building a public restroom became a monumental challenge. Between permits, environmental reviews, zoning debates, and contractor markups, what should have been a simple, low-cost project could balloon to nearly $1 million before a single brick was laid. That isn't effective governance, it's government run amok. The country needed problem solvers, not paper shufflers. Instead, it got a gridlocked system where talk was cheap, action was costly, and meaningful progress felt nearly impossible.
Feels like San Francisco is actually proud of being impossible. Asked about the toilet, a spokesman for the Department of Public Works said, "We are a city of public input." Okay, but I'm stepping in public output.
San Francisco's open defecation crisis is more than troubling. It's a national embarrassment for a city that prides itself on progress and compassion. Once vibrant streets known for their culture and charm are now plagued by human waste. Residents are pleading for action, yet the local government remains stuck in a bureaucratic maze. Every attempt to build public restrooms gets lost in a tangle of environmental reviews, funding disputes, and procedural hurdles. Meanwhile, citizens are left to navigate sidewalks that smell of neglect and indifference. It's a striking example of overregulation gone wrong, good intentions strangled by bad systems. People want clean and safe streets. They want dignity restored. But until the city breaks free from its own red tape, San Francisco's most basic human crisis will continue to fester in plain sight.
The median time to get approval to build a house there is 627 days. That's 217 days longer than it took to build the Empire State Building. You need 87 permits, 15 from the Planning Commission, 26 from the Public Utilities Commission and the Fire Department, 19 from building inspectors, 17 from the Public Works, 10 related to public spaces, and 1 from a guy in a t-shirt that says Federal Boob Inspector.
It's genuinely disheartening. The more we advance as a society, the harder it seems to actually get anything done. We've wrapped ourselves in caution, political correctness, and bureaucratic red tape to the point where projects our forefathers completed in a year now take 2 or more. Yet we're the generation that boasts about innovation, speed, and intelligence. The irony is unmistakable. We live in an age of artificial intelligence, smartphones capable of calculating rocket trajectories, and nanochips smaller than a grain of sand, yet we can't build a basic road or public facility without getting buried in paperwork and protests. Progress is being paralyzed by procedure. Our tools are stronger than ever, but our systems and willpower seem weaker. For a generation that claims to be smarter, this level of inefficiency is nothing short of baffling.
No wonder that in 2021, San Francisco issued only 2,000 permits for new homes. Sure, there are people living in the streets, but that's because we want to make sure the apartments they don't live in are perfect. I don't fear AI anymore because it couldn't possibly be any more robotic than the humans who run things now. So let me...
San Francisco and California are facing a full-scale homelessness crisis. One would expect this urgency to inspire leaders to streamline housing construction, but instead, the process has become even more difficult. Building a single home can take years, buried under permits, zoning laws, environmental reviews, and community hearings. At times, it feels as though the system is built to keep people on the streets. And that's the real tragedy. These are some of the most beautiful, prosperous, and technologically advanced states in the nation, home to world-class cities and billion-dollar tech companies. Yet they struggle to meet one of the most fundamental human needs, shelter. Tents lining sidewalks have become the new normal, a visible symbol of failure masked by good intentions. California could be a leader in affordable housing innovation. Instead, it leads to red tape and excuses. 8.
Let me finish with this. Not that there was ever any reason to build it in the first place, and not that there would be any reason to do it again. But just as an exercise in realizing how far we've regressed as the can-do people, I think we should all try to imagine how it will go down if we tried to sculpt Mount Rushmore out of a mountain today. First, we'd have to make the mountain handicap accessible, so we could hire handicapped people to work on the side of a mountain. Then there'd be a 10-year delay while we studied the effect of construction noise on the mating habits of woodchucks. Then another 10 years to obtain ethnically sourced dynamite and find a sculptor who doesn't only work from home.
The sheer number of permits and regulations required to build anything in this country has become downright absurd. We've turned progress into paperwork. Our ancestors, with far fewer resources and no maze of permits, managed to build railroads, bridges, and entire cities that still stand today. They weren't perfect, but they got things done. Today, bureaucracy acts less as a safeguard and more as a barrier. It slows innovation, crushes initiative, and leaves urgent problems to decay. Look at San Francisco's open defecation crisis. The city doesn't need more committee meetings, it needs action. Every day of delay worsens public health and safety. If leaders spent half as much time building solutions as they do filling out forms, the streets would be cleaner, the city would be healthier, and citizens would finally see genuine progress.
And then another 2 years to apologize for being on Indian land. And finally, after 50 years and a cost that had ballooned to $100 billion, we'd have half a nostril, and it wouldn't be Lincoln, it'd be Che Guevara.
It might sound ironic, but it's absolutely true. We assume that all these layers of bureaucracy exist to protect people and the planet, but in practice, they often do the opposite. And when they do help, the impact is usually so small that it's hardly noticeable. It's the illusion of progress, dressed up in red tape. Take electric cars, for example. For years, we've been told they're the environmental silver bullet. But after 2 decades of tax credits, subsidies, and widespread adoption, the overall impact has been surprisingly modest. Why? Because our electricity still largely comes from fossil fuels, and mining for batteries brings its own environmental costs. So while we celebrate going green, the planet barely feels the difference. Real progress doesn't come from paperwork or performative policy, it comes from genuine, effective action.
I feel like it wasn't that long ago when you could watch cable news for a day and not get the impression that this whole place was totally batshit. That simply was not America. Florida, yes, but not America. So, let's examine what makes sane people feel this way. Sane people who are, after all, still the vast majority, and who are the ones who, I assume, just voted me the most trusted man in America. That is a real headline.
You might not like Bill Maher, and I don't agree with everything he says either. But one thing is undeniable, he's consistent, honest, and unafraid to challenge his own side. That's rare these days. Maher delivers commentary that's clear, balanced, and sane, even when it ruffles feathers in his own political camp. So when polls named him one of the most trusted men in America, it wasn't a fluke. It was decades of fearless truth-telling. He's earned his stripes by questioning dogma rather than parroting it. What makes Maher stand out, even as a liberal, is his ability to dissect issues with clarity and wit, calling out hypocrisy wherever it appears. Love him or hate him, you always know where he stands, and that's why people listen. At the end of the day, Maher isn't just ranting. He's voicing a frustration millions of Americans feel. Bureaucracy has replaced efficiency, and red tape has become the national pastime. From failed shovel-ready projects to San Francisco's open defecation crisis, the evidence is everywhere. Too many rules, not enough results. Maher's critique isn't about politics, it's about common sense. We live in an age of unprecedented technology and intelligence, yet we can't seem to build a toilet, a house, or a road without drowning in paperwork. It's tragic, ironic, and absurd all at once. Whether you agree with him or not, his message is clear: America doesn't need more committees or permits. It needs courage, accountability, and the will to act. Because if bureaucracy keeps winning, progress will always lose. And on that note, we'll draw the curtains on today's video. If you enjoyed it, hit the like button and subscribe for more content like